For elections to be free and fair in any democracy, there must be adequate legal framework that guarantees a credible system. In order to provide this framework that will improve elections in Nigeria, the National Assembly passed the Electoral Act Amendment Bill of 2021, which among other things provided for the electronic transmission of results and the adoption of direct primaries by all political parties. The passage of the bill was widely applauded across the country, and the long wait for the president to give his assent to the bill started. Alas, the assent was not to come, and the 30 days provided by the Constitution elapsed. The reason given by the president for withholding assent was that the inclusion of the mandatory direct primaries in the bill might pose financial, legal, and security challenges. Stories of the National Assembly overriding the president's veto started gaining popularity across several sections of the media. But again, that was not to be, as the National Assembly went for their Christmas and New Year break without resolving the impasse. However, the National Assembly resumed yesterday and immediately addressed the president's concerns. And today, the Electoral Act Amendment Bill has been reconsidered and passed, while leaving out the mode of party primaries to the discretion of political parties. On today's episode of Nigeria Today, guests will be speaking on issues around the Electoral Act Amendment Bill. I am Lydia Ochi. Thank you for joining us. Joining me to speak to the issue is Senator Kabiru Gaya, Chairman, Senate Committee on INEC and Electoral Matters. Glad to have you join us on the program.
Good evening, Nigerians, and good evening. I'm happy to be here with you.
Also with us here in the studio is Ezenwa Nwagu, Chairman, Partners for Electoral Reforms. We appreciate your presence.
Thank you.
Okay, let me begin with the Senator. There were expectations that the Senate would override the President's veto on the Electoral Act Amendment Bill. But as we have seen today, the National Assembly chose to go with the concerns of Mr. President and left out the mode of primaries at the discretion of the political parties. Now, what are the issues around this decision?
Well, first of all, thank you for inviting me to this program. I would like to mention that the National Assembly members representing the people from different constituencies, and they take views of members of their constituencies. When the president raised observations on the bill that we worked on it for over 2 years, that we in the National Assembly should try to be more democratic, not boxing the parties into one election mode. And we look at it, we said there is reason for that, and some members have to rethink again, and then generally on the floor of the Senate, most of the people agreed to make amendments based on the president's requirement, because the bill, we have over 100 plus clauses, and we cannot just throw the bill simply because of one item of the election, especially when we talk of direct primaries. And there is fear of insecurity and other things, and then the fear that the parties may have choice, and some political parties may not be able to do these direct primaries. But so we look at it as, well, be it, let us go with the, instead of throwing the whole bill, let us take this, and if there is any amendment in the future, then we can do amendment based on what we have on the ground. So let us try these policies or these laws, and let's see how it can work. And we believe it might work with the cooperation of all Nigerians and with the cooperation of the government. It's all trying to allow members of the political parties to choose their candidate. And that's why we insisted that all candidates that are registered as political parties should now have the right to vote for their nominee, because if that, what's the reason why we have to go for membership drive for our political parties if we are not going to allow members to choose their leaders? That was one of our reasons for the direct primaries.
Okay.
But we do not want to really throw away the whole bill simply because of one item in the process. We have a lot of issues we have put. We have a lot of things we went through, the electronic transmission, all other issues related to the election, the laws that will govern to have free, fair, and credible elections. We even talk about areas where no electoral officer can be put under duress to announce results. All those issues were addressed, or are fully addressed in this Electoral Act, which will be now called Electoral Act 2022.
Okay.
So I hope that what we have today, both the Senate and the House, will be able to now get the bill ready and be passed to the President. I believe the President will sign the bill as soon as possible.
Okay.
Because that's the area he raised, and that's the area we addressed.
Okay. Now, Mr. Ezenwa, what are your thoughts on the National Assembly's reconsideration on the mode of party primaries?
Well, I think that the National Assembly has a bragging right right now, because it's reconvened just yesterday and has prioritized what is of interest to majority of Nigerians across the divide. Everyone was very clear that what they wanted at this time was to ensure that we have a law that can give a better framework to the elections that are going to come from now to 2023. And so it's exciting to see that they honored that clarion call from Nigerians to resume and prioritize doing some work around the Electoral Act. But every law is supposed to cure a mischief. So we don't just get into this cycle of amending the Electoral Act for the purpose of amending it. If there are other booby traps that have been inserted into the new amendments, I think it's important that democratic watchers are vigilant. I do know, and I hope I'm correct, that the Senate has adopted what I call the APC Constitution. The APC, what is in the APC Constitution on mode of party primaries. The House of Rep limited itself to direct and indirect primary. The idea of consensus to us is not democratic. It's a constriction of the space, of this democratic space that a lot of people invested their life, invested their everything to ensure that we get to this point. So anything that continues to constrict the space, we will have thought that the Senate will just stay where a lot of Nigerians, just concession. It was a concession that yes, we want direct primaries because it's inclusive and all the rest of it. But if the president is not going to sign, we're not going to go back to a situation in which we throw the baby with the bathwater. That the sunshine, it thinks that the distinguished senator has talked about that are already in that bill needs to be carried along into ensure that we get this bill signed so that INEC can have some funds to conduct election 1 year before the election. All of those beautiful things need to. So there's that concession that, okay, we can postpone it. Not that doesn't mean we're not going to come back to it. We're going to come back because we know that it is democratic. We know that it is participatory. We know that it expands the democratic space. But we plead, and we're already calling on the Senate to please do a more deeper in the conference that we hope that they will have with the House of Representatives, that they take out that consensus thing. It's to us not democratic, and will constrict this space.
It's okay. Now, Senator,
yes.
Passage of the Electoral Act Amendment Bill took priority today at the National Assembly and got accelerated passage. Just how important is this bill to Nigeria?
Well, I believe it's very, very important. That's why we're able to rush it on the day we resumed, because we know that the Nigerians need to have election that they feel is credible, that they are getting the results of the people that they really voted, or the announcement or result of the people that they really voted into office is the real thing, not really giving them something else. So it's very, very important to national development. It's very important to the democratic process in this country. It is also very important to our stability. When election is free and fair, there will be stability in the country. But when there are no laws to govern to make sure that we have free, fair, and credible elections, then we will have problems. That's why we, as my colleague said, we cannot throw away both the
baby and the bathwater.
Baby and the bathwater. So let us look at this. I mean, let us just pass the way people have, the president has proposed, and then if there's any problem, we can always amend the act. We can come back to it and make. But so far, what we have can be able to sustain a good and credible elections.
It's okay. Now, Mr. Ezenwa, one aspect of the bill that was widely applauded was the provision for electronic transfer of results during elections. Now, how important is this aspect also?
Well, we've always made this point that result collation has been the weakest link in our, in the chain of election and electoral process. So when the results from the polling unit are altered, first and foremost, like the distinguished senator said, you have the winner of an election needs to have legitimacy. He needs to carry that pride that he won this election. And so if the results in the polling unit do not reflect eventually what is announced, it creates a crisis of confidence. And so that crisis of confidence can be taken away by a bimodal way of cross-checking, because that is what this is about. Many times people make the mistake and think that once you have electronic transfer of results, that it eliminates the manual. That's not true. What happens is that the results from the polling unit is transferred electronically. So while the computation is going on, people already have the results, and so there is that confidence building mechanism is what that process is about. And we saw a bit of that in Edo. We saw that in Ondo. I think a lot of people, and then in the by-elections in Isoko South, where one federal constituency and Nasarawa, it inspired confidence. People felt, well, this result reflects the votes that we have cast. And I think that going forward, because of the crisis that the smart card reader faced with the judiciary as to whether it is, so we needed to legislate clearly in an unambiguous term, put it there into the law so that we can be confident that every electoral officer will make that happen. Because reality is that there have been measures by INEC with the work of his committee to improve this process. There is the Form E60E, which is the people's result that INEC officials are supposed to paste, bold, pastely, but they don't adhere to it. So now there's a law that says if you don't even do that, you are now liable to go to prison and all of those things. So there's these laws, this bill, if it is passed, has tendency to inspire confidence, and that is why we're looking forward to it so seriously. Okay.
We still have more questions to talk to be answered, but we'll take a break now. Nigeria Today returns in a moment. Don't go away.
This is NTA News 24 broadcasting from Abuja. You can watch us anywhere, anytime on the following platforms:
Start Times Channel 101, Freak TV Channel 703, GSTV Channel 419, and Go TV Channel 46.
For more information, log on to our website www.nta.ng or join us on our social media handles: Facebook at NTA News 24.
For comments, suggestions and inquiries, send an email to news24@nta.gov.ng or call us on the following numbers.
NTA News 24.
News and more news.
Welcome Welcome back. If you're just joining us, we are still discussing the Electoral Act Amendment Bill. Our guests have been Senator Kabiru Gaya, Chairman Senate Committee on INEC and Electoral Matters, and we also have Mr. Ezenwa Nwagu, Chairman, Partners for Electoral Reforms. Now, let me continue with the Senator. While the Senate approved direct, indirect, or consensus for party primaries, the House of Representatives rejected consensus. How is this going to play out? Are we going to see further legislative work on this between both chambers?
Well, first of all, when we are transmitting any bill that is passed to the President, there must be one single bill of the same contents from both the House and the Senate. So therefore, if there is any differences between the House and the Senate, which occurs like this, the Harmonization Committee will be set up, and that Harmonization Committee will look at the little differences and be able to harmonize so that both the two houses will now have one common bill to agree. So that means there is a slight difference between consensus and no consensus. That will be sorted out by the Harmonization Committee. I believe it's resumed on Tuesday.
Okay.
The Senate will now, the National Assembly will form a Harmonization Committee, and that will work on those differences. And as soon as we do that, we will now commit the bill back to the chambers, both the state at the House and then the House of Rep and the Senate. And by that time, when it is passed, we'll send it to the President. I believe by next week, before the end of the week, the bill should go to the President.
Okay. Now, Mr. Ezenwa, the upward review of campaign spending is another critical issue in the Electoral Act Amendment Bill. For presidential candidates, it was increased from 5 to 15 billion naira, while for governorship candidates, campaign spending was increased from 1 to 5 billion naira. What is the reason behind the upward review, and of what advantage is it to Nigeria's electoral system?
Well, I think that's the threshold. It doesn't necessarily mean that that is the amount of money people who run the elections need to have. If it is, I also know that running for election in terms of its genuine expenses can be very, very tasking and very. If, for instance, we are running for presidency, we are going to be putting billboards in nearly 774 local governments. If it is one billboard, so it really is. I don't really worry myself personally about that. Those figures. If you campaign, if you engage the people, if you are able to drive with volunteers, you may be able to save some money for yourself as an individual. But so what that means is that, one, the whole idea of campaign funding, we have not been able to track it. Not civil society, not the media has been able to track it, because people spend monies directly and indirectly. The ones that they do indirectly, you can't hold them liable for it. So the pretext that you are staying within a threshold is what I don't. For me, that's not my big issue. The big issue for us will be really these ones we are postponing, because someday we're going to come back to what kind of democracy are we practicing, where the people are not in the center. It will be a few people. Well, whichever way you put it, direct, indirect, we think that direct will give more opportunity to people living with disabilities, will bring in more young people, will also drive people at the grassroots who don't have resources. But I hope Senator Gaya, incidentally, is our partner, a very, very forthright partner with us. But I just hope that the Senate is on the same page with us on this whole direct thing and the consensus thing. So it's important that Nigerians understand that it is for very clear, patriotic reasons that they are looking for this direct and some of the things that they are putting.
Well, let me clearly add it that the issue of the direct we have insisted earlier was because we want to bring democracy down to the grassroots. And when you have people at the grassroots given the opportunity to choose a leader who will run for them on the ticket of their party, we give them encouragement. Even they will feel like they are the campaign directors of that party. I was a product of direct primary in 1991. I was a young man at that time, and I campaigned with people that are even older and more wealthier than me. But because I went around to the grassroots, met the people, and they identify with me, when they came to the primaries, I had about 90% votes of all the votes cast with my other aspirants. So because that is the people now, after the primaries, I won the primaries, they supported me all through, make sure that I win the general election. And when they did that, I felt I was totally indebted to them. And when I won the election and I took over office, I had to do what the things I promised to maintain my position as a good politician. So I believe it is important next time we will look at it, maybe there will be a time when you do that, because direct primaries is done for councillors in all the local government, because they are closer to people and people can easily choose who they believe is capable of being their leader. So we did this, but we do not want to keep on talking about it on this and then forget the main bill. The other bill is very important. Let us try and pass it for the interest of Nigerians, so that INEC can be able to do its job before the 2023 general election. Okay,
actually, my next question was actually for you, Senator. Quickly, we're running out of time. Let us look at some of the critical issues contained in the amendment bill. The provision of legal backing for card readers. How significant is this?
Well, the card readers are generally the equipment we use to determine who are present at an election. And in the event where in those days where we don't have card readers, when there is a provision for 500 people maximum in a polling unit, and there is no card reader and only about 100 people turn out, the electoral officers or the agents or the political parties can maneuver and be able to put 500 people who are there, and then give the 100 votes to one party and 400 other party. But when there is a card reader, when the card reader was introduced, there was serious objection. But we accepted in the Senate and became used all over the country for elections. That means the card reader only determines the number of people that were at the polling unit. So if the card reader determines there are 200 people, you cannot write 500 people were there. So that means additional 300 people that people are put in to rig the election may not work. So the card reader also helps in giving us virtually an accurate results at the people at the polling units. So that helps. That's the new technology we introduced. And now the beavers we have, even though we had problems in Anambra election, but now we have asked INEC also to look at those and see how the vendors can update their equipment to have a better effective equipment working during the election. So certainly there are technologies we introduced, but those technologies are for the interest of Nigerians, and we hope this will help greatly.
Mr. Ezenwa, in 2 minutes, assuming that the president finally passes this bill, what will be your expectations in the 2023 general elections?
Eternal vigilance is the price of liberty. So what does that mean? What it means is that you do not necessarily have to, as important as technology is, you don't surrender your processes to technology. It is still going to take the active engagement of citizens to ensure that, for instance, you are talking about voter identity theft, which the beavers address. If there is collusion, if there is community collusion, what do? You have to, the technology would, so we need political will. We need, strength of the institutions that drive these elections to be able to ensure that, first and foremost, that these laws are implemented to the betterment and desire that captures the aspiration of a greater majority of Nigerians who are looking for free, fair, inclusive, acceptable, credible elections.
Okay, Senator, will be your parting shot as we round up the program.
Well, thank you very much. I want to thank Nigerians and the government, the National Assembly, for giving us opportunity to bring up a law that will be in the interest of the country for the general election. And I just hope and Nigerians will keep on giving us the support to do the best we can for them and for the country. And I thank the National Assembly, the chairman of the National Assembly, Senator Ahmed Leon, and the Speaker of the House, and all the principal officers and all my colleagues in the National Assembly for working hard to get sure this bill is fine. We've been on this bill for almost 2 years, finally to come to this level. And I congratulate Nigerians. This bill will be certainly of support and will enhance the democratic process in Nigeria.
Thank you so much.
Thank you too.
Thank you so much. We hope so too. That's it on tonight's episode of Nigeria Today. We want to thank our guest, Senator Kabiru Gaya Chairman, Senate Committee on INEC and Electoral Matters. Thank you.
Thank you too.
And Mr. Ezenwa Nwagu, Chairman, Partners for Electoral Reforms, we appreciate your thoughts and your time with us.
Thank you.
We also want to thank you, our viewer, for always keeping a date with us. Don't forget, you can always join us, watch other episodes on youtube.com/NTA News 24 Hub. Thank you for watching. I am Lydia Ochi. See you tomorrow.
NTA News 24 broadcasting from Abuja. You can watch us anywhere, anytime on the following platforms.
Start Times, Channel 101, Brick TV, Channel 703, GSTV, Channel 419, and Go TV, Channel 456.
For more information, log on to our website www.nta.ng or join us on our social media handles, Facebook at NTA News 24.
For comments, suggestions, and inquiries, send an email to news